York's classic rock, Q1043.
Good morning. There are different moments of our lives when things happen outside our lives, but we know exactly where we were when we heard the news that changed our lives. And one of those moments for me was when we lost Harry Chapin in a car accident, tragic car accident on the LIE. He was 38 years old. I can still see where I was at the time in my living room, listening to the radio station where I worked and just thinking, no, I'm not hearing this. I'm not hearing this. I'm not hearing this. It was one of those moments. Harry Chapin was much more than a singer-songwriter. He was at his core an activist, a humanist. He founded Why Hunger with Bill Ayers, who I used to work with actually at WPLJ, and I'm so honored that I got to work with him. And he also founded the food bank, Long Island Cares. But of course, there's Cats in the Cradle. Of course, there's Taxi. Joining me this morning, Jason Chapin, who is Harry's son, and Rick Korn, who is the director and producer of a new documentary, Harry Chapin, When in Doubt, Do Something. And you can see it, if there are still tickets available, on Monday at the Port Jefferson Drive-In. It's part of the Port Jefferson documentary series. And then you can also see it virtual cinema starting on October 16th, which appropriately is World Food Day. And then it goes wider on the 30th of October on all the platforms, the Apple and everything else. So first of all, welcome, gentlemen. I'm so honored that you are joining me this morning. What an inspiration. First, Jason, how old were you when you lost your father?
17.
Okay. And Rick, how did this all come about, this documentary?
Well, Harry, I went to high school at Plainview JFK High School on Long Island. And one day in the middle of the day, the entire school gathered and Harry Chapin came running into the school and put on probably the best concert / lecture you can ever go to. He played his great music and he talked about hunger and poverty. And then years later, I did get involved with Why Hunger and produced a couple of Hungerthon concerts, most notably the one right after 9/11, which we did with Bruce Springsteen and John Bon Jovi and a number of incredible artists. So I got involved. With Why Hunger, and I was filming Bill Ayers for a completely different documentary. At the end of filming him, I said, Bill, how come no one's ever done a documentary on you and Harry? It's just an amazing story. And he said, I don't know, why don't you do it? And so we went back and I wrote a treatment and we presented it to Jason and to Sandy Chapin, Harry's wife. And we filmed Sandy that first day, and here we are 2.5 years later. And we think this is a really important time to tell Harry's story.
Jason, if your dad was alive today, what do you think he'd be doing?
He'd be involved in so many different things. First of all, he passed away before we all had an iPhone and social media and all these other platforms, but he would be really focused on drawing as much attention as possible to all the issues that we're facing today and try and bring as many people as possible together to do something about it. He was always action-oriented, so hunger and poverty would have been his primary focus, and he would have been doing everything with Why Hunger and Long Island Cares and many other organizations around the country. He would have been down in Washington, D.C. talking to members of Congress. He would have been asking to meet with the president. He would have been talking to all of the experts and just talking to all of his fans and talking to anybody who would listen to him, just to say we need to do something.
There were so many things that surprised me in this documentary. Again, it's called Harry Chapin, When in Doubt, Do Something. You can see it if tickets are still available at the Port Jefferson Drive-In on Monday. And then on World Food Day on October 16th, you can see it by virtual cinema. First of all, I did not know, Jason, that your mom, Sandy, the poet, actually wrote Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah, she is just a very creative, intelligent, and passionate person. And so, you know, the story "Want to Learn a Love Song" is about when my parents met, and it was my father giving guitar lessons to my mother, and so they had an instant chemistry because they were both into poetry, they were both into writing, and so my mother would write poems and songs, and they collaborated together on a show my father did with my Uncle Tom called Make a Wish, which was on ABC TV. It was a kid's show, and they wrote a bunch of songs together for that. But my mother wrote Cats in the Cradle as a poem, shared it with Harry, my father, and he kind of said, this is nice, but then he put it in the drawer. And then he revisited about 6 months later when he was looking for some songs for the album he was working on. And it just resonated. I think it was just after the birth of his youngest son, my younger brother, Josh. And I think there were other things going on in his life, you know, a lot of family demands. And so I think it really resonated with him. And he added some lyrics, and the rest is history.
But of course, he didn't even realize. I mean, it was a huge song at the time, but it just exploded over the years, even becoming a verb. I mean, it's just part of our culture.
Yeah, and it's incredible that it is such an iconic song, talking about the relationship between a father-son or a parent-child, but it's great when it's on TV shows and it's in movies, and it's all, you know, Father's Day, it always comes up, and it's been in books, it's been on commercials. And it's just a reminder that, you know, life goes quickly and we have to cherish our relationships, especially family relationships. And so it was really designed to be a reminder. And I love the fact that, you know, my father was it was very important to him to share credit with my mother. So he would always talk about how she co-wrote the song. And, you know, if you look at the single, it has her name and his name on it. And it's just been something that has allowed my father to reach not only, you know, his fans when he was alive, but it is a song that parents have shared with their kids. And so it's been passed on to younger generations. And that's the power of music, and that's the power of that song.
What was Harry Chapin like as a dad? I'm going to get to you in a minute, Rick, because I have something specific to ask you. But I just following along this, you know, line of thought. What was, because we only knew obviously the public Harry Chapin. What was he like as a dad, Jason?
He was just very frenetic. He was just busy doing lots of different things. But, you know, when he was home and we had family time, he loved watching sports. So we watched a lot of sports together. He loved playing sports. So we were playing football, tennis, baseball, you name it. A lot of times, you know, we'd go bowling. It was just, you know, always activities. And then he was also very creative, and he was very good with projects. So we built some things together. And one of the things that I cherish, in our backyard, we had this big tree, and we built a huge tree house together. It had a staircase and it had a big bay window, and it was just, you know, it probably took us about 6 months to do, but he just loved being able to do projects and do them with family members. And so there was always something. We went on, you know, when he was on tour, we would do, you know, excursions and do some, you know, touristy things. And so we're always doing stuff. It was just his way of, you know, spending time with family was to do stuff, not just to sit around, but to actually, you know, get out of the house and do something.
Rick Korn is the director and producer of Harry Chapin, When in Doubt, Do Something, which is opening on Monday at the Port Jefferson Drive-In. It's part of the Port Jefferson documentary series, but you can all start watching it on virtual cinema on October 16th, which is World Food Day. Rick, there was a moment in the movie that just shocked me, because there was a moment that shows that Harry was prophetic about his death. Share that with us.
Well, in our research of doing the film, we stumbled across an interview that was done somewhere out in the Midwest. I don't remember exactly where, in almost the exact year before Harry's death. It was in July of 1980. And I think Harry was involved with Ralph Nader a little bit, and they talked about, you know, the issue with cars exploding when they get hit by, you know, from behind. And he posed in this interview. You got to see the movie, but he poses in this interview and really predicted his own death.
It was crazy.
Crazy. And when we, Shelley, when we saw that for the first time, you have to realize we're going through just tons of footage of Harry, and Harry liked to talk, so that's a lot of footage of Harry. And when we heard that for the first time, we literally almost fell off our chair. And then we looked at the date of when that interview was, and it was like, well, pretty amazing.
What I also didn't know, and I so loved learning about your dad, Jason, and what you showed us, Rick Korn, in the movie, was that Harry was so devoted to the cause of, you know, helping the homeless and feeding the hungry and ending poverty, that it actually it was to the detriment of his career, because he would never say no to anyone. He would never say no to a benefit concert, and he wasn't doing enough concerts that was bringing in the money for the family. And you had a promoter who was saying, look, you know, you have Kenny Rogers, who in one concert can bring in as much as you make in a year for your causes. But there was something in him. He could not say no. That's why I say, to his core, he was an activist and a humanist.
Well, I think he was into documentary filmmaking before he became successful as a musician, and he had done some work for the World Bank, and he went to Ethiopia and did a film about the incredible poverty and starvation. And I think that planted a seed in him, that this was just unjust. It was just unacceptable. You can't allow this. And then, you know, over time, he realized that there was a hunger issue in the United States, and he would always say, you know, this is absurd. The richest country in the world to have so many people who are unable to feed themselves, and this is just not something that he could accept. So he just felt that he had to do something. He felt fortunate because of his ability to, you know, do concerts in front of thousands of people and sell lots of albums, you know, and generate a lot of revenue, that he also felt like, I don't know if it was guilt, but he just didn't want to make money for the sake of making money. He wanted to make money so that he could do something important with it. And so that's why he gave away almost all of his money. And it was just something that he couldn't stop. I mean, Ken Cragen was right. You know, he tried to put some sense in my father and say, you know, you have to think about your career. You have to think about your future. And his brother Jeb was also part of his team and said the same thing. Everybody tried to tell him, but it was an addiction. He could not stop. And you're right. He said yes to everybody who asked him to do a benefit concert. And he was also very close with Pete Seeger, who was a big influence on him. And Pete Seeger was the same way. He just felt that if people needed him to do something, it was his obligation to do something.
And this is exactly what we need right now. Okay, Rick, we only have maybe a minute left. What else would you like to share before we end?
Well, I think the most important thing, two things. One is, with all the noise going on in our country right now, this is a 93-minute escape. And we hope that you'll be thoroughly entertained, and that you will, in that, also be inspired, as we were to make the film. And, you know, when I think today, we talk about his accomplishments with Cats in the Cradle. What I think about today is we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's the programs and that spirit of Harry and Bill Ayers, who are feeding people in not only the New York area, but around the world in the middle of a pandemic. So I don't think I know any musician or singer-songwriter in the history of music where you can say his impact is being felt literally today. And that's why we wanted to come out with the film now.
And the film again, Harry Chapin, When in Doubt, Do Something. You could see it at the Port Jefferson Drive-In on Monday, and then on the 16th on World Food Day, virtual cinema, and then on all the platforms streaming on the 30th. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you
very much. Great to be with you.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.